My new book, Pillars for Life, A Guide to Spiritual Ethics and Practice, is now out and available for you to read and purchase. You can check out our website, willowhealing.org, to find a link, or you can find it on Amazon. We look forward to getting your feedback, and if you love it, please leave a review and share with your friends. Now it's time for the show. Welcome to Willow Healing Matters, the podcast. We are so excited to have you joining us on this journey where we explore different ways to empower your soul, whether it's healing in your kitchen or all the way up in the corporate world. Come with us as we look into different ways to heal your mind, body, and soul. Hey everyone, it's Catherine from Willow Healing, and today with me I have Helen Sanderson. So she is the author of the bestselling book, The Secret Life of Clutter, and she's also known as the Clutter Therapist. Helen is a highly experienced home organiser, a psychotherapist and interior designer, and the UK's leading expert on the psychology of clutter. She helps people create beautifully organised, clutter-free homes and live more conscious and meaningful lives. So I'm really excited for this conversation, and thank you for joining me, Helen.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
So how did you get pulled? Like everyone, when I think of clutter, I always think, oh my gosh, I don't want to do that right now. But how did you end up working with people to actually unclutter their lives?
Because of people like you who say, I don't want to do that right now. And I know the burden and the weight that is carried by procrastination and avoidance. And actually, you think about the weight of the possessions that you have, how many hundreds of things that weigh you down spiritually, psychologically, but actually the burden of the thinking about doing it is kind of the thing that is actually really weighs on our mind. So it's like anything that you procrastinate on, it the longer you procrastinate and the more you put it off, the more difficult it gets. And I have maybe I'm blessed with a great joy of doing. I like to be busy, I like to be doing, and I like to sort of see impact and results. So I don't have the if I'm coming in to help you, for example, I don't have the burden of your procrastination. I just have the energy to get it done. So that kind of generally that combination really helps with people.
Yeah.
So yeah, I really love doing it, and I love the results, and actually my clients want to see results.
Yeah, it's funny because my workspace, my coach was like, "Hey, you need to clean up your workspace." And I looked around and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I do." Because it's like a shared space where I am, and it just became a bit of a dumping ground. And it felt just so much better actually being able to see my desk again. And it's funny because I'll get to these points and it will start to stack up. And then I'll be like, no, I can't work that way. And it's only when you clear it that you realize how much that's weighing down even on your mental clarity.
Yeah, absolutely. It is I mean, I think one of my philosophies is that the inside and the outside are kind of one. So if your internal world is in a chaos, your external world will mirror that. And equally, if you clear up your external world, it will help you kind of order your internal world. So it doesn't always have to happen. We're very focused on coaching and psychotherapy, and sort your inside out, and then your outside will mirror that. But actually, sometimes you can sort the outside, which will then help the inside. So it's kind of a mutually exclusive thing.
Yeah. And do you find that a lot of people, they have the clutter or the build up of things that they can't let go of? Is there like a psychological kind of or emotional attachment with that?
Oh, most definitely. I mean, I talk a lot about the different drivers that include the reasons why we end up with clutter. I mean, we talked about the top level one, which is procrastination, which we all know about, but there are many, many, many more complex reasons. And so if you've been through sort of trauma in your life, or you've had a bereavement, it's not uncommon that somebody who maybe has lost a relative or a child or something, been through a really tragic loss, that they would really struggle to let go of any of their possessions. And I think it's really important that you take your time with something like that. But if it's something that's maybe 10 years ago or a long time ago, one of the reasons why that struggle, because they know that when they go through their possessions, they're going to find things that link to that person. And when you find those things that link, they become like triggers, memory triggers. And if the memory that's triggered is a painful memory, it then triggers distress and emotions. And so ultimately what we're doing when we're avoiding decluttering is avoiding feeling feelings.
Yeah.
What might kind of get evoked in the process. So and that's why support is so essential. You know, I've been doing this a long time. When I started doing this 20 years ago, and I tell certain people, and it wasn't as trendy as it is. This was pre-Marie Kondo. It wasn't as trendy as it was nowadays. And there was still a lot of attitude, you know, well, you should be able to do it yourself, or, you know, why can't they do it themselves, or, you know, and actually, I think that's part of the problem, is that we think about possessions as just stuff, but it isn't just stuff. They're extensions of ourselves. They're stories of our lives. They are parts of our history. They are burial mounds to our trauma. You know, there are many, many complex reasons to why we have clutter. So it's not a case of, well, just do it, don't be lazy, you know. And then also the other thing that's really worth mentioning is ADHD and neurodiversity, dyspraxia. Some people really just are not spatially aware or spatially skilled, or their brain working at 100 miles an hour, that they're on to the next project and their body can't quite keep up. So that creates a trail of chaos behind them. So there's sort of, there's lots of complex reasons, which is kind of what I've specialised in, really.
Yeah, and it's so true when you were saying like the emotional attachment, because we're like currently packing up our house because we're relocating, and my husband and I just sit there with things and we're like, do we really want to try and move this Lego construction that we built, you know, and try and relocate it? And then we're like, no, actually the joy was building it and looking at it for a little bit, but there's nothing left there anymore. So, you know, we had a garage sale and that sort of thing. But even when I was cleaning out things, I found like a memory kind of box from like things from like high school and like little mementos and things. And I thought, why am I even keeping this anymore? Like, this was over like 20 years ago. You know what? I don't have no attachment to this anymore, but I'd had to get to that point before I could let it go. Whereas before, every time I'd moved it 2 or 3 times with me. So obviously there was still that emotional attachment there.
Yeah, and at the time it was important. So if somebody had taken those things from you at the time, it would have felt like a violation or, you know, a traumatic thing. So I sometimes talk about, I worked with quite a few coaches in my time, and who did training and coaching, and they'd be like, oh, I've just delivered this course and it's so amazing and I can't possibly get rid of the resources. There's so much really good, helpful stuff in here. And we'd go, well, look, there's, you know, 50 courses you've run, and it's taking up a lot of space. And so then we decided that there was like this maturation process, a bit like cheese, that needs to mature, or your memory box.
Yeah.
You know, but actually at the time you really need to keep it and know that it's there, just in case you need to reference something. But after a period of maturation, you've moved on. And quite often, you know, we're moving on all the time. But you know, we're all very different, and that's kind of really important to me, that we understand that we're all different. And that is not just the neurodiversity, but, you know, astrologically we're all different. Some Virgo and people are really organised and it's their natural talent, and other people are not. So creative people generally can be quite chaotic, and you know, accountants and bookkeepers can be very meticulous. So we're all very different. So some of us perhaps like to live much more in the future, and some of us are much more sentimental and sort of look back at the past and like memories, and will kind of anchor down into history. So there'll be those of us who are into SpaceX and Tesla and the planet, future, where are we going, when are we going to live on Mars? And then there will be some people who are much more interested in their family history and, what were we doing historically? And that's how we are. We're all very different. And I think that we create our homes like that. For me, I'm much more of a modern, futuristic person, so my homes are going to be a reflection of that. Others of my clients, they like history and they like those historical old pieces of furniture and that connection. And I think that's the beauty of our expression of our home and our life, isn't it?
Yeah, and especially often, like you said, we all have different kind of tastes, for lack of a better word, but, we all have drawn to different looks and we're drawn to different feelings. And it's interesting too, because, often I find with thinking back on my life, it's when you go through an identity shift or a big change in your life that you want to change everything. So like when I broke up with my ex-husband, I'm like, I want all new furniture, because it was like, I need a fresh start. I want something new. Like I'm going to go pick things that now resonate with me in this new adventure of my life. And I feel that can be a trigger for people wanting to then actually go, okay, maybe I need help getting like decluttering and resetting because this isn't feeling like me anymore.
That's so common as well. Like when people go through a separation or, a change of career or a change of location. I always talk about how snakes shed a skin, and we shed a skin too. And so the things that you wore when you were in your early 20s, you're not going to be wearing in your 50s or 60s, because we're different and we grow. So I love that, what you're saying about, the furniture didn't feel like me anymore. And I've had clients that are the same, I need to reclaim my space. I need to make it my own.
Yeah.
Or, even to the point where I need to declutter this house. I need to let this house go, because this is a part of my history that I don't feel comfortable living in, because I need my future self to have space to grow and expand. And so we're very, very connected.
Yeah, and it's very funny that you brought up about letting the house go, because like the house I lived in at that time where I got the new furniture, I'd built with my ex, and it was only when my husband now and I decided like, oh, we'll sell it because we don't want to live here anymore, like our dreams have changed, that extra emotions came up when the house actually sold. And it was like, didn't realize how entwined, there was so much memories and triggers actually entwined in that. It was only when it was letting it go that, like you said, then you have to face the feelings and, actually feel the feelings so that you can move on and you can grow.
Yeah, and I think we're generally quite scared of feelings.
Yeah.
Either ashamed of them, like people that I work with will be maybe quite upset and they'll be apologising, and I'm thinking, well, this is often a process. I think that decluttering is processing. It's processing your life, it's processing your emotions. It is like psychotherapy, but it's externalized psychotherapy, which is why I call myself the Clutter Therapist, because I do believe that you're processing your life, and there will be painful things that we've been through, because that's the reality of life, isn't it? And so allowing ourselves to have those feelings, and sometimes the feelings that come up are angry feelings, and they're ugly feelings, and they're pissed off feelings, and that's okay too. I think we've got kind of
yeah, it's like we've become complacent with looking for the positive emotions that we forget we still need to feel the ones that are negative. And I don't like using negative emotions, but they're the ones that are a perspective of negative, right?
Yeah. Well, I like to think of it as like night and day. You've got the sunshine feelings, and then the night feelings, or the dark feelings, as it were, which are not so pleasant, but they're all part of life, aren't they? Like what would it be like if we just lived in the day all the time? We wouldn't appreciate it. It would just be light all the time. So.
When you said that, I just had this image. My son watched this cartoon, and that's exactly what they were arguing about, the night and the day, like in this cartoon. And then that's what agreement they came to. You like have to have those contrasts in life. Otherwise, you never really, like if you didn't have the low moments, you would never then enjoy the high moments because there's no contrast. You know, and that's part of being human and that human journey.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, clutter ends up being connected to our humanness, doesn't it, in a way?
Exactly. Exactly. And for people who are listening and going, but I have so much clutter, what are some tips you have to overcome the obstacles of like the procrastination or whatever comes up with that?
Well, I think that if you're a really entrenched procrastinator, sometimes you need some support. So it's a bit like, having a professional organizer is like having the personal trainer. When they turn up at the door, you're going to do the press ups, you're going to do the sprinting around the block or something. Whereas if you were on your own, you might always every night have the good intention of doing it, but then actually, you wake up in the morning and just press snooze on the alarm again. It never happens. So having the accountability really is, I think, the key thing to breaking through procrastination, because our minds are so clever at talking ourselves out of it. Having a methodology. So one of the products that I've created is my home declutter kit, which is a process that I take you through. So it's got a little book and it's got a set of cards. And I always say that clutter is decisions that haven't been made and actions that haven't been taken. So the action that hasn't been taken is, we've already covered that really in procrastination, but it's really a micro decision making process. So the home declutter kit that I've created, it talks you through how to set up and how to walk through the process of making decisions. And so in a metaphor sense, and that this is covered in my book and in the kit, but I talk about an overgrown garden.
Yeah.
And the first thing that you've got to do is the weeding, pull out the weeds. And pulling out the weeds is deciding what do I keep, what's of value, what's a beautiful plant that's going to thrive, and what's a weed, what do I not need anymore, what's kind of suffocating the space. So that's the weeding is the decision-making process. And then the second part of the process is the planting. It's redesigning, it's the planting plan. So that's where everything has a place, and there's a place for everything.
Yeah.
So everything having a place is the one thing that people have said to me, oh, if only everything had a place, I could keep my house organised. And it's true, because if you mentally know exactly where things go, it's much easier to maintain it, which is the third phase of the process, which is keeping it clear. And sustainability, sustaining the hard work that you've done. And like any garden, if you don't keep maintaining it, it's going to overgrow again. So that's the process. And really, I think the thing that people, in my experience, find most difficult is the sitting down and making those decisions.
Yeah.
Because decisions are hard. I mean, it's particularly, I've got Libra in my chart, and I can see both sides of everything. So, I think the biggest fear that people have is fear of making a wrong decision, or fear of throwing out something that they'll regret. And so in my declutter kit process, I've got strategies for how to manage that.
Yeah, which is so powerful. And, just thinking of what you were saying, there was someone, I heard this saying, it was like, instead of putting it down, put it away. And I consciously started doing that, right? So instead of, putting the dish in the sink, you just put it straight in the dishwasher. Or instead of, putting the empty bottle there that needs refilling, you just fill it up straight away. And it's amazing how much it actually saves time in the long run, because you don't have to talk yourself into doing it again, because you've already done it. But then also what you were saying with creating those systems, is really powerful because, you know, if ever, you know where things go, you find things quicker too, right? You know, like there's, you know, when you don't put your keys back where you always put your keys, then it delays your day, it uses up energy that you don't want to have to use up. You know, for us, it's normally my little one will put them somewhere different, and then he's like, I don't know where I put them. You know, then you have to search the house for them. So I can see like how powerful it can be just to have that system in place to organize your life, essentially.
Exactly, and then the other thing, because you're talking about your resources of time, aren't you? And being efficient and being able to live more harmoniously and live with more ease. Whereas when you can't find things, it creates stress and anxiety and time wasting and rummaging and panic. But the other thing that happens is that when you can't find something, you then go to our good friend Amazon or bad friend Amazon or whatever, but everything is delivered tomorrow, and so you can just get another one. And then it's so common that in the decluttering process we'll end up finding 600 sellotapes, I'm exaggerating, but quite a few sellotapes or quite a few staplers or quite a few, because they got lost and so we needed another one. So that then becomes a waste of resources as well. So if you just the one or two things that you've got, then you're more likely to kind of look after them, put them away. And also the putting things away, I always say put it away straight away, or Helen says put it away straight away.
Yeah.
But
I love it.
what you're doing then is you're giving your future self, like Helen tomorrow, a gift, because tomorrow I'll be able to find those scissors or that sellotape or something. So that's the thing.
And that makes so much sense, Helen, because it's like, if you know, that's what it's like, comes back to, again, like you said, the time, your resources and everything. And often, how often do people go, I know I do this, why didn't I just put these away? You know, like, you know, why didn't I just put the scissors back in the drawer rather than, you know, spending all that time looking for them? And exactly like you said, it just creates, it's a future gift for yourself, which is really, really powerful to remember.
And it's interesting that you asked the question, why don't I do it? Because, I mean, yesterday I was listening on the radio and they were talking about processed food and why do we all eat all this processed food? We know that it's not good for us, all this sugar. Why don't we stop, you know? And that was kind of what they were debating on the radio. And I thought, well, that's a really good question, isn't it? Why do we sort of do things against ourselves? Do things against our best wishes or our best self? So I always think about, you know, not just decluttering, but also the maintaining part is really about self-care.
Yeah.
And it's really about making a decision to do that, to take care of yourself.
Yeah.
Because we all have, I believe that we all have a kind of, a bit like the night and day thing that we were talking about. We have a tendency to move towards the positive and a tendency to more move towards the negative, and that's the kind of force of life, really.
Yeah.
So if we don't kind of make conscious decisions to take the healthy choice, we can unconsciously slide into the unhealthy one, as it were. Like, it's so easy. I don't eat very much sugar, but I notice, like, as soon as I have some, it creeps back in. It's like, how did that happen? You know, suddenly I've just eaten in the last 4 days. So it's like a kind of something that we all have to be mindful of. And it will be the same with the home. If you don't kind of make a conscious commitment to yourself, like, this is an act of self-care. It's not, you know, I'm not going to think of it as drudgery. I'm not going to think of it as chores. I'm going to think of it as taking care of myself. I'm going to think of it as mindfulness. And I'm going to make that choice in the same way that actually I don't really, and many of my clients know this, I've said this, I don't really like exercise. I like going for walks, but I don't particularly like pushing weights and things like that. But I know that I need to do it. So I need to make a conscious choice to do that in order to support my well-being. So part of being an adult is choosing to do things that we don't want to do sometimes.
It's funny because I recently finished Atomic Habits because I had another podcast guest recommend. Yeah, you're like, yes. And it was that it was just really interesting. It's like if you have to do something because you know it's beneficial overall, you need to reward it with something afterwards straight away so that your brain's like, oh, if I do that, then I get this. So it's like you have to create those new habits. And a lot of people don't realize how long it takes to establish habits and keep them actually in your life. Like they talk about, get to 21 days and be okay. It's like, no, the next 21 days tends to be the hardest because that's where you have to keep up and counteract all the things going on in your head. And then the next 21 days after that, that's when it starts to integrate fully into your system. And then it becomes an actual good habit that hopefully it's a good habit that you're trying to integrate, but you know what I mean? So again, like you said, it's like, you get into the habit of you get up in the morning, you make your bed. And people, this is something I wrestled with, well, why am I making my bed? No one's going to come look at it. But at the same time, like you said, it's that self-care act, because then when you come to bed later, it's like, oh, my bed's all made. It looks really comfy and I want to get in, instead of the sheets everywhere and the blankets everywhere. And then you have to deal with that when all you want to go to do is go to sleep.
And I love that as well because, I do talk about, I recommend, there's a book called Make Your Bed, and there's also a book, The Atomic Habits, which I recommend. But so one of the things that, we go back to where we started, which was the psychological reasons why people have clutter and chaos and mess and all of that sort of house challenges or difficult relationship with the house. You come up to your room and the bed is made. I think that invokes, not for everyone, but invokes a memory of when you were a child going up to bed and your bed was made, because good mothering would have provided that lovely environment for you. And so what we do when we make the bed for ourselves is that we're mothering ourselves, which is what, when you've become an integrated adult, you've integrated your parental features, aspects, and you can then enact them for yourself. So you can give yourself discipline in a nice way. You can give yourself praise, and that's part of being an integrated adult. But quite often my clients will be in rebellion, like, oh, well, I was always told I should make my bed or tidy my room, and now I don't want to because I'm free from that draconianism and I can do what the hell I like. But actually, what the problem with that is that the kind of teenage rebellious stage is a stage that we need to be able to go through, but it is a stage. And when we get stuck in, fixated in a stage, we then have to deal with the kind of the consequences of it. So I do think that there is, like the external and the internal are very intricately interchanged.
Yeah, it was like there's a lot of in words in there.
Yes.
It's like intimately, intricately interchanged.
Yes. What about tongue-tied?
Yeah, exactly. And as we start to finish up our time together, Helen, I asked the guests that come on the show if there was something they could heal or change in the world, what would it be?
I think for me it is to try to break down some of the shame and personal self-attack happens around clutter. But there are complex reasons why people end up with clutter. And there are a lot of emotional reasons and a lot of feelings connected with it. And, some people have had a lot of trauma. So to stop the self-judgment and not the judgment of each other and other people. And, we all have the hoarder next door, don't we? But actually sometimes hoarders are actually incredibly resourceful people. And the resourcefulness has just got slightly distorted and out of perspective. And sometimes it's a compensation or, a reparation for something that was lost previously. So just to really, that's my mission, is to shine some light and awareness and some deeper understanding into some of the reasons why we have clutter and to break down the shame that surrounds it.
You made me think of that.
And if you're listening,
Yeah,
Sorry.
Oh, no, sorry, you cut out.
I was going to say, if you're listening and you're feeling ashamed, then, please do read my book, because actually that's one of the reasons why I wrote my book, was to give stories and examples of some of the reasons why. So it's really a journey of people's experiences and stories.
Yeah, and
it's okay to ask for help.
Exactly. And it made me think of that. There's a quote, and it's weirdly, it was the TV show Ted Lasso. It was like, be curious, not judgmental. He's like, ask questions before you judge. It's all about, actually why, what's going on for them that, and maybe it can sometimes be, even like someone needs help. It can be that too, so just, being curious and being human, coming back to what you said, the humanness of clutter, coming back to that and just being open with that, which is such a beautiful concept to think of, rather than, they just have a problem or something like that. Yeah. And where can people find your book, Helen, and where can they find you if they want to work with you?
My book is available on Amazon, all over the world, I believe. And my website is helensanderson.com, and I have a free gift. People, I think it's how to avoid the 7 mistakes people make. And there's a quiz on my website, so you can go to helensanderson.com/quiz or gift, and that should hopefully get you to where you need to be.
Yeah, beautiful, and get you thinking about your clutter a bit more.
Yeah. And getting into action, because remember, clutter is decisions that haven't been made and actions that haven't been taken, so it's about getting into action.
Yeah.
So yeah, I really want to encourage anyone to, even just starting off with one small area will create some momentum.
Yeah, and get people out of that freeze zone, right? Like where they get in that freeze point in their life. That is such a beautiful. I'm so grateful to the universe right now, because I have a friend in this state, and I'm like, this will help her immensely. So thank you, Helen. I love that. That's full circle. So I will make sure to include all those details in the show notes. So if you're curious or you're wondering if you have got clutter, maybe go do that quiz too, and you can have a good introspective moment where you're seeing what's going on in your life. And thank you so much for sharing all of that, Helen. It was a really beautiful conversation.
Thank you. I really enjoyed it too. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Willow Healing Matters, the podcast. We have so much love and gratitude that you have taken the time out of your day to empower you on your healing journey. The views shared by the person being interviewed might not necessarily reflect that of the host and should be used at your own discernment. Trust what resonates for you and follow your heart and soul guidance. If you have any underlying medical conditions or mental health issues, please consult with your healthcare provider before pursuing any of the recommendations. Likewise, you can always contact the person being interviewed to find out more information. This can be found in the show notes. Remember to activate, align, heal, empower, and find love in everything that you do.